Hello, lovies. How are we? Happy Friday of Labor Day weekend 2024. We just had a Diet Coke emergency 2024. Okay. But we are here tonight together. Thank you so much for joining me because this is a very kind of special day for me because I was able to reach out to a very incredible woman, a strong woman, a big sister, and somebody who has fought for justice for the last 24 years for her sister. And her sister is Molly Bish. And Molly Bish, if any of us knew or remember growing up, she had gone missing at Comin's Pond in Warren in June 27th of 2000. And we're going to get a lot of background, a lot of insight of everything that the Bish family has gone through over the last 24 years, fighting for justice and trying to, get the answers that they so truly deserve. And without further ado, my guest, the big sister who deserves a hug virtually from all of us, the incomparable Heather Bish.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I appreciate that.
Of course. And Heather, it has been I have been a fan and a follower on TikTok since you made your TikTok because I'm very new to the YouTube world. So thank you. Bear with me on this one. It's, oh my gosh, it's a nightmare, but I'm doing, we're doing the best that we can. But there has, you have really been very impactful in your message, in your messaging, and in, how you're able to deliver in like small bits about, what is going on currently and where you've come from. And I just think that a different audience and our friends, our best friends from out of town, as I like to say, want to know all about you and all about Molly tonight.
Well, thank you. Well, where should I start? I guess, we grew up as a small family, and my mom is from Michigan. My dad was from Massachusetts, and we sort of landed in this small town. So my dad didn't have very many family members around. He had his uncle and his mother. And so it was just, the five of us. So we all grew up really close. I went to all my brother and sister's soccer and baseball games, and they came to my horseback riding shows. And we just thought that was normal. We didn't lock our doors. We lived in a small town. We thought we knew everybody. We felt really safe. We had that sort of idealistic sense. And that, those bad things that we saw on the news happened on TV somewhere far away. That's kind of was our reality until June 27th, 2000. My sister was a lifeguard at our local swimming pond, and she had taken over that job from my brother, who had been the lifeguard for 3 years. But my brother was going into his sophomore year of college, and he really wanted to learn how to do building and construction work. So he had gotten this big job. It was big money for him back then. And so so Molly trained all winter to become this lifeguard, took the classes. She was the strongest swimmer in her class. And my brother worked with her the first 8 days that she was on duty there. So this was when she was taken. It was the third day that she was by herself.
Wow.
And it was shocking. I think when, we first learned of it, we thought, what could have happened? Somebody made a mistake. She's got to be there. Molly was an honor roll student. She was very conscientious. She wouldn't have just taken off and skipped work. She didn't skip school or any of those kinds of things. So, and she was particularly cognizant of that day because it was the first day of swimming lessons, and she had spoken to my mom about it. She was nervous. She just felt this like sense of responsibility. So she went to her job, and at this local swimming pond, we didn't have a lifeguard chair at the time. So she actually would go down. It was this, again, is a small town. It was an old mill town. We're kind of out in between central Massachusetts and Western Mass, although everybody considers it Western Mass after Boston. So I don't know.
I know. I know that too. Yeah.
So it had been like, this pond belonged to the water department, and then became sort of a recreational facility for the town. So there was a little barn, and Molly would go down to this little like sheddy barn thing, and the water department kept their equipment there, but Molly kept her beach chair and some of her like the big like first aid kit she would get out of there. So she just would set up her chair, and Molly, unlike my brother, was not a big time swimmer in ponds. She didn't like icky feet. She wasn't into that, grounding stuff that we kind of are into now. So she went, like, my brother would do laps. So my brother actually knew the pond really well, where Molly didn't. She would only go in there maybe to cool off a little bit. But she had remember those Adidas shower shoes? They were like black and white and kind of Velcroed. So she would just wear those in. She really didn't like icky feet. And so for us, when we got to the scene later, and we saw her shoes there, we right away knew something was wrong, because Molly wouldn't have gone anywhere without her shoes on, certainly. And it wasn't, they had sort of assumed. I guess I'm jumping around here. I'm sorry. So getting back to it. So she would set up, and she would only have a police radio because this was 2000. So there wasn't cell phones really back then.
Exactly. We were not hip to everybody having cell phones, or if we did, you only were using them after 9 o'clock, right? Yeah.
She had a beeper though. So she would, get beeps.
Yeah.
So she did have that. But all of that was left behind. So on that third day, she, everything was left set up that same way. Her beach chair's there, the first aid kit, her shoes are laying there, and the police radio sitting there, as well as her beeper. So we knew right away something was wrong.
And Heather, could I ask you if there's just because from what I've read, and I mean, I remember I literally remember the day that your sister went missing, because I was at my Nana Phyllis's house, and just because I had blonde hair and I was, around her age, I was 14, she was 16. And it was just like, my Nana was like, oh my God, that could have been, so it was a kind of a big deal. And it was, it became the largest, search in Massachusetts history. But, there was just conflicting reports, because I just wanted to clarify with you, when the park rep, the pond manager was contacted, that was approximately 11:30 in the morning. Is that correct?
Okay. So this is interesting.
Okay.
So there's a parks commissioner. He had hired my brother, he had hired Molly. He knew Molly was working that day, as far as we knew, he had gone to the pond and given Molly brochures to buy a bathing suit, for a lifeguard bathing suit, because she had on what my parents bought her, a blue bathing suit. So it was just a one blue full piece bathing suit. It wasn't a lifeguard bathing suit. So, there's that, that was, particular to her case. So she, so when the first parents arrived at the beach, which is just about 8 minutes after Molly got there. So we think Molly was taken within 3 minutes, let's say, of her arrival there. They've been able to narrow that time frame down that small, but wow. She, so the mom who arrived, they're waiting around looking for Molly. They see all her stuff. And of course they think of a teenager, what the heck is she doing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they picked up the whistle, they picked up the police radio. And so they kind of already impacted the crime scene. So they called the police on the police radio and said the lifeguard's missing. And that's, right away, around 10ish, let's say.
Oh, okay.
So the police then call the parks commissioner, and he says, oh, weirdly now here. So he says, I don't know who's working, John or Molly. Let me go up and check. Now, he had just seen John, my brother, at about approximately 9:30, 9:38 in the next town over from Warren in West Brookfield at a local hardware store. John, like I said, John started this new job.
Yeah.
He was picking up some stuff. He happened to run into this parks commissioner, but then he goes and tells the police. So to me, that's always been peculiar.
Right.
He was looked at. In fact, I still get information on this particular person because I think once this happened, everybody started reflecting on and looking at each other a little bit closer. And
Yeah.
I don't think that they did a full maybe background check on this particular person. And there was some concerning things in his background. Nothing that he went to jail for or anything, but there were some concerning allegations in his background that hadn't been,
Yeah, that is very
relevant.
Yeah, that's very odd and off-putting almost. Has he been, when you said he's been looked into, has he been cooperative? Was he cooperative with?
Yeah, so I think early on, because it became so chaotic early on because nobody knew what was happening and they didn't know what to expect. We all had this sort of idealistic idea. We didn't know how many sex offenders lived around us or in the next town. We didn't know, this parks commissioner had an issue. There was, a police officer that had some issues. Molly's boyfriend family we knew those that had some issues, but we didn't know so many people closely around us had these issues. So I think it, caused everybody to look a little closer at events and people around them. But, getting back to that day. So the day before, what happened was this is again, Molly's third day of work. She has her permit, but not her license yet. So in Massachusetts, you have to drive with a parent. Yes. Until you get that. So my mom would drive with her every morning, and Molly would drive my mom's minivan. And what they would do is they'd stop at the police station, pick up the police radio, and then proceed to the pond. The day before is this famous sort of day when we see the man in the white car. So yes. My mom drops Molly off. Now my mom's a teacher, and she was, I think, working summer school that year. So she was had some stuff to get ready for school, and had stuff on her plate to do that day. But she saw this guy. He's smoking out of his left hand in a very effeminate way, and I can't do it with my brace on.
I'll do it for us, right?
And he's just staring at my mom, and she's looking at him. And my mom is a teacher. We can kind of. I'm also a teacher. You can kind of sense these mischievous behaviors in people. And so she kind of gives him that teacher stare, what are you doing here at 10 o'clock in the morning smoking a cigarette? My daughter's here, by herself. And so she pretended to rumble around in the car a little bit. He still wouldn't leave. So she got some stuff together and went out and sat with Molly for a while and was like, so who's here? Who comes here? And that's when she started asking her, you feel safe here? And Molly's like, oh yeah, Mom, it's just fishermen. It's just fishermen. And so when my mom went back to the car, this man was gone, and we never, seen or heard from him again. However, when, after this happened with Molly and they interviewed some of the people in town, he was believed to have been seen by a cemetery worker in the cemetery which is adjacent to the
Right
pond.
to the pond. Yeah.
And then at the end of Cummins Pond Road is a car wash. And he was also seen there by a young man who used to go visit Molly all the time. He had a little crush on her, and he would, and I actually remember talking to Molly about him and saying, even though he's younger, he's still a man and he might be able to overpower you. I'm like, make him stay on the path when you go down to the shed. It's just so crazy to think you've had this conversation and then somebody else comes along.
I know. Now, I always think of Molly, like I definitely want to go through everything that we can that happened, but I was hoping to maybe give just like her personality. I know that she's a Leo baby, okay? That she's in August 2nd was her birthday, correct?
Yes,
so
she's very much a Leo.
Birthday. Yeah. And that she, like, knowing that she was an honor roll student. She had just finished her junior year of high school, correct? And that she was going to be going into her senior year coming up in, 2000, graduating in 2001. And I'm just kind of thinking, Heather, was she somebody like a boisterous, out like a just like I'm a baby in the family, so I'm just a big I'm like
Oh yeah.
And but at the same time, like I'm overly cautious. I'm a people pleaser. Like there's we're complicated people, but I'm just thinking of her at 16 years old, and just did she have a tight group of friends? Was everybody Molly's friend, or did she? I know that you said she took pride, and I know in her job, and that she would have never left that job. Or just took off and gone to the woods. Like she was very, just responsible in that manner. Is there anything else that you would feel comfortable sharing?
Oh, I love talking about Molly. It's actually, people say, how can you do this kind of work and advocacy? But it allows me to share stories about my sister and still, laugh about her personality and the things that she did. Molly was very exuberant. I was lucky. I was 6 years old when Molly was born, and my parents were kind of these hippie people. So she was born at home. And so I witnessed the whole thing. And because I was 6 and she was my sister, not, I'd already had a brother. That was kind of like old news. I was like, this is my baby, she's mine. She's going to be just like me. I'm going to make her my best friend. And then, you start growing up with a sister in there. It's annoying as can be, right? And Molly loved she always loved babies. She always loved dolls and Barbies. And, but she would insist on getting real baby clothes. So my mom would drive to this discount, kids clothing store the next town and let her pick out outfits for her dolls. But she loved people. She loved her friends. She was hilarious. She could impersonate Forrest Gump and Adam Sandler like a champ and would crack everybody up. She was very ADHD too. So that kind of that impulse control. So sometimes she would smash a cupcake in her coach's face and we'd all react oh, and then everyone would start laughing and it would be okay because Molly did it. And she just had that ability.
She was the only one who was getting away with it, right? Yeah. Like anybody else, they'd be up the creek. Yeah.
But she was so empathetic. She, my mom was a teacher and a special ed teacher before she became, a second grade teacher. And Molly, I think we all just have a special place in our heart for people with disabilities. And, they do this inclusion thing into her art class where they'd bring these kids in for art and they wouldn't, see them for the rest of the day. So the kids would be nervous, but Molly loved seeing them. So she would be like, come on in. And she'd write them notes and be like, hey, I've been waiting for you to get here. And she just made them feel like such a part of the class when they were kind of had been separated so much. And, that some of these stories we were told after. I'm lucky. I was able to, I did get to kind of train her in music. I think she loved the same kind of music as I did. And we would sing Tiffany songs on my bed when we were little and with hairbrushes. And, we had a great life together. We were just beginning to have our adult relationship. I would have her come sleep at college with me over the 4 years when I was in at Assumption and Worcester. And,
Yeah.
she did it. She enjoyed it. And I tried to teach her about French cafes and the cool bookstores in the city. And we would make hemp bracelets. But she was also very much like my brother. She loved to play sports, and was actually helped start the first female soccer team at our high school. So she was just,
gosh, a total
really,
package.
I think,
Literally.
because people relate to her so much and think it could be their daughter, because she was like that all-American girl. She really just was that person that you might know as your neighbor, or your, the person in class that just made you feel welcome or comfortable, or a person cheering you on your soccer team.
Yeah. I think that that's just so amazing for all of us to hear, because as much as we feel close, or remember where we were, that was your baby sister, right? And those are just, it's so special for us to be able to, feel like we know her, even though, unfortunately we never got a chance to meet her, but we can help in any other way that we can, to keep her alive and with us all, so that we're putting forth the message of justice for Molly Bish. And thank you just so much, because that's all such beautiful memories. And she does sound like every girl that was our sister or our cousin or our, me as 38, I have going to be a 15-year-old daughter. Oh, what?
Crazy,
so,
right?
At the time.
My daughter grew up as an only child, and later on in life, she got a stepdaughter a stepsister for a short time, and she's 15 now, and my daughter's 25, and the 15-year-old's boyfriend broke up with her recently, and my daughter's now living in Colorado, so across the country. But she called me and she said, "Mom, I'm seeing red. I'm ready to come home, get on the next plane, and just go to this guy's house and punch him out." And I said, "Yeah, see, that's what it is to have a sister, and that's what fires, the work that I do to try to, solve this and make things better, and change the way that, we look at missing persons, or we react to them, or how we can solve these cases." It's that seeing red.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that passion and that fire in you that I personally, Heather, I admire so much. I admire, and that you are looking at legislative. You look at everything. We'll get there, I think, at the end. But the work that you do, the impact that you've made, and all aspects of missing persons, and even just taking it from a local community up to state level. You are, ma'am, you're burning at both ends of the night, and you have been for as long as you have. And why is that? Because of that passion of your sister, right? You saying that
I just love her so much.
we have. Yeah. And you can feel that. So, okay. So now if we're back to the parents have called on the two-way radio.
Yep.
They've interrupted the crime scene already, because nobody knows at that time, that it's actually a crime scene. And then what happens, Heather?
So then, like I said, the police call the parks commissioner. There's a kerfuffle about who's working. I believe the parks commissioner goes to the pond. He allegedly he closes the first aid kit. And then I think he goes back down to the police station, has lunch with the fire chief. Still no word to my mother. And then approximately 1:00, the police officer on duty calls my mom and says, "We can't find Molly." And my mom is beside herself, because, again, she knows that her kids are not going to leave their jobs or, go anywhere without letting her know. So she immediately calls me. And at this time, I have this 25-year-old who's 11 months old at that time. And I live a mile down the street from my parents. But I'm planning on going to swim with my friend at her mother's house in town. So I had been sort of packing up for that. And I'm thinking, oh, nothing this can't be anything, you know.
Yeah.
They must be mistaken. I'm like, I don't know. And so I get in my car with the baby and I say, okay, I'll meet you at the police station, Mom. And so I start driving, and it's about, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 miles to the police station from where we live.
Mhm.
And as I'm coming into like sort of the center of town where the police station is, I can see my mother driving up like haphazardly from the other direction, in the direction of the pond. So she had already gone to the pond and was screaming at everybody, "Where's my daughter? Where's my daughter?" Now everybody at the pond is freaked out because at this time they just think, "Oh, well, she's a teenager. She didn't come in. She took off. Something happened." And let me just add, the day before Molly disappeared, a girl that was her age on her soccer team was hit by a drunk driver while she was riding her bike home from work. So, and it was a local person who had hit her. So, it was a community member. So it was kind of put the town, and she's okay. But at that time, it was really a critical condition that she was in. So the town was already in like a So
they were on like edge because of that. Yeah.
So to give them credit that was already had just happened, and now they had this thing. They're kind of like, oh, maybe she's upset about this girl being hit by a car, or So I can to some extent understand, but now we're coming in to not alert my mom. To not alert my mom right away.
Wild. Wouldn't happen today. You know what I'm saying? Like, or if it would, there would be big problems.
No, right. So, my mom and I go into the police station. The officer on duty is saying, she probably just took off with her friends. So I say, okay, well, did you check her friends then? And he says no. And I say, okay, well, I'll go do that then.
No worries.
With my 11-month-old baby. Don't worry about it. And my mom's, at this point, now, again, my dad's a probation officer in the local courthouse system. So, he knows all these guys. However, at that time, probation officers would go out on the road once a week, and they would check on their clients. So again, he's got this like flip phone with the antenna you pull out from 2000. So they couldn't reach him. And my mom's like, I want the chief. I want my husband. I want you guys to do something. Now, meanwhile, in between this whole time, this is all going on over the radio where, the parks commissioner is calling into the police station and all this is going on. My friend's father works at the gas station downtown, who is also big in the fire department. And he knows Molly Bish is not going to just take off. There's something wrong here. Why aren't the police doing anything? Sometimes there's that fire department police thing.
Yeah.
That was alive and well back then.
Oh, yeah.
So the fire department reacts long before the police do. So the fire department responds as if she drowned. So that's where that kind of story came in. But they really just wanted to that was all they could do, is sort of eliminate that possibility. So they're already,
she was such a strong swimmer, and she was and she's a lifeguard, and it was like, what are we checking? But they were proactive. Fire department, they were being proactive, saying we're going to the pond to do a search because that's what the fire department was able to do.
Yeah, because you guys are just like, this one's going out to lunch. They're just, and they're like, what, so this. Yeah, so this was a thing. This was this is a real like animosity between them.
Yes.
So then the fire department's already diving. So meanwhile, I go to check Molly's friend's house. I go to a couple of friends' houses. They start sort of like a phone tree, or their parents start a phone tree. And then I go to the boyfriend. Now, meanwhile, I had picked up my friend to help me with the baby.
Okay.
That I was going to go swimming with. And she came with me to these places. We go to, and our final stop was the boyfriend's house. I go in, and he's got his brother, and there's some friends there. This is like the first couple days of summer vacation. So they're, all the kids are like hanging out, having sleepovers and stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's some kids there that I don't know, because they're 6 years younger than me, and they're not necessarily Molly's group of friends. So I'm like, I need Steve. Where is he? Molly's missing. And they're like, oh, he's, I'm like, go get Steve, go get Steve. So they go get Steve. He kind of comes up like he's just waking up. Now he had worked the night shift, so he works till 11.
Oh,
He
okay.
had talked to her that night, and he had talked to her in the morning at 9:30 before he went to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Steve does not have a car.
Oh,
He's
okay.
from a, and so, I never, again, at that time, we're not really thinking that.
Right.
Like, I guess I was thinking, well, maybe someone like raped her and like in the woods and she's hurt in the back and maybe she hurt her ankle and she can't get back. Like, that's the worst I thought could maybe have happened.
Yeah.
I didn't expect anything to this degree. But so Steve goes to the bathroom, allegedly he had a cut on his eye. I didn't even notice it. I knew he was putting the eye ring on.
Yeah.
I didn't really notice anything. And then he came to the pond with me. I remember thinking, like, keep your eye on Steve, but I didn't see him doing anything out of ordinary. The only peculiar thing that day was when his stepfather arrived. So it's really hard to visualize this because it's like it's this pond. You're going down a dead end street. There's a parking lot. Then you have to walk a trail across a stream, a little bridge. So you walk across a little bridge with a stream to the beach area. So it's a little, it's a little ways, and so Steve and his stepfather kept walking that, like pathway and smoking. And maybe, they were nervous. Like, who can judge? I don't know. I think it's hard to judge people's reactions when there's things like this that happen. But that was really the only, kind of odd thing. But like, it was a chaotic scene and nobody knew what was happening. Come to find out, those guys were involved in some credit card fraud on the computer. So right away, the police, thought the boyfriend, right? I mean, 90% of the time it is the boyfriend.
Right.
100%. We just didn't buy it. Like, he was 16. Like, I guess if it had been where, we found her body or something and she was, if it had been more of a reactionary, but like for him to be able to plan and execute something like this and get her out of there and hide her, and then leave, and then ultimately leave her in the wood. He just, first of all, he had his own executive functioning weaknesses. And he didn't have access to anything to do that.
Well,
he didn't have
not having a vehicle and him working.
Horses,
yeah.
He was working. Again, like if it had been more of like we found her dead, shot in a house somewhere, okay, maybe, but that wasn't necessarily the case. So for us, we didn't really buy it very much, but the police were so convinced of it that of course we're gonna think about it, and everybody's gonna think about it a little bit. So I feel like he was a little bit isolated that way, and then he didn't know how to react. He didn't have a very strong family system to like model anything or to help him or support him, and the school certainly didn't at that time do much for the kids.
No.
So he really, I think he struggled for a while, and he lived under the shadow probably for the remainder of his life. Unfortunately, he ended up dying in a car accident in 2009.
Wow.
But
we never, you as just a family, you as the strongest person who knows everything. No worries. We have doggies. I have one too. It just that never, even with a cut in his eyebrow where his eyebrow ring was, there just wasn't anything really.
There was also rumors about so we go to later on we have this grand jury thing in 2004 or 6, and they keep asking us about parties that I hadn't been to, and like this fight my sister allegedly had with Steve about a hamburger. So Molly also worked at a place called Howard's, which was like a hamburger and ice cream place. You just drive in, you sit outside kind of place. And I guess she might have brought him a hamburger that he didn't like. and maybe they had a disagreement about it or something was said. I don't know. But like Molly wore her emotions on her sleeve. Like you could tell if she was pissy or if she was,
Yep.
happy or, again, she's 16
Yes.
too. So like those emotions were like
very big. Yes.
Yes. So, and again, we're a close family, and particularly her and I with this relationship stuff going on. So nothing was ever said to any of us about it. So we never really, again, put much credence into that. And again, I guess if someone thought he killed her about a hamburger, why didn't he just kill? How could you like pull her out of the pond, leave all her, and Molly would have put her shoes on to walk away with Steve. She wouldn't have just jumped. Like, why didn't she have her shoes on?
Because she would have known him, been comfortable, and just been like, do, I'm grabbing all my stuff.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you about the first aid kit, Heather. Sorry.
Yep.
Was when he said, when the manager, not the manager, what is his name? Like the
parks commissioner. Yep.
The parks commissioner, when he claimed that he closed the the kit, was there anything that ever came of that? Was there things missing from it?
Not to our knowledge. So
okay.
It was, again, they weren't taking, like, this guy, again, this guy's in charge. He's not super organized. So, he couldn't give any reliable information that anything was actually missing. Do we believe that someone might have said, hey, I need help up here, I hurt myself, and Molly might have opened the kit and grabbed some tape or something? Likely.
And then
we just don't know. We just don't know.
And so after you go to see Steve, Heather, then you now I'm sorry, because I know that I want to get where we're going, but I have so many questions.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Did your mom, and she was Maggie, right? Or is that appropriate? Or
Yep, Maggie. Yep.
I'm sorry, I don't want to.
No. She's Maggie.
When you how you're describing it to me is that your mom knew, right? Immediately, not saying knew what had happened, but took it very seriously from the second she received the first phone call.
Yeah, and she was very concerned about this guy. And she mentioned him from the very beginning.
And his creepy friggin' mustache. Never mind him with this, but he had a weird mustache, didn't he?
Right. So when I get back to the pond, my mom, now, meanwhile, when I'm running around at Steve's and everything, my mom goes to get my brother at his construction site, comes back with him. John runs through. Now, at this point, the police are all there, and the state police are starting to arrive.
Okay.
John runs in, dives in. So I would say the state police arrive around 3-ish.
Okay.
Around, I could be off a little bit.
Yeah.
But John arrives shortly after. So he's diving, and looking for her because he knows all these little crevices. And the fire department ends up having to sort of drag him out, and then they're still trying to find my father. It was, I think, the Spencer Police Department that ended up locating him and driving him all the way to the pond. And by this point, I'm like, she's not here. She didn't drown. Somebody freaking took her. It wasn't freaking Steve. Let's go.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to do. You're sort of frozen. I wish I had thought okay, set up barriers, stop everybody, hindsight is
always 2020. And you got to remember, you have an 11-month-old baby. You're just, you're young you're a brand new young mom. You're a big sister, and you're doing everything that you can to help. But at the same time, who had been in that situation before, Heather? Right. Without you guys had never thought you were going to be in a position like that, or B, when you're in it, it's very difficult to navigate through, right? So I hope you give yourself a lot of grace with that one, because there's it's all well and good, and now you're able to give the education to others, but you wouldn't know what you don't know.
I do, but I give less grace to our law enforcement and our legislators right now, because we're now 24 years out. And we still do not have mandated training for missing persons for law enforcement. So when it looks differently in Brookfield, Massachusetts than Hanover, Massachusetts, or Truro and Springfield, it's because it depends on what who you happen to have on duty and what he happens to know and how he actually feels like reacting to it. So
that's so interesting that you say that too, Heather, because we've been covering, like a lot of my humans, we've been covering Karen Reed, and we've also been covering Sandra Birchmore. Like this week has been a very emotional week with Matthew Farwell being apprehended and just justice for Sandra. But it's you're bringing right to the heart and the crux of this, right? It was like Warren police initially, we're getting a better response and a more thorough response from our fire department than we are from our police department. Okay. What was your overall experience with Warren police and then like Mass State Police, because then we'll go into what happened when she was recovered.
So this is another box we're going to open up, and I'm going to talk about this a lot more in my podcast that's coming out soon.
Yes.
But there was a police officer that was on duty that was concerning. Now, 3 kids. I'm the oldest, my brother, and then Molly. For some reason, I ended up being the wild one. I don't know. It's usually the youngest one. I don't know. I'm the one that had the parties when my parents went to Florida that got busted by the police. So, I don't know why or how that happened, but this particular police officer had busted some parties at my house and, had never given my friends or I a particularly hard time. However, when Molly was 16, there became issues that we heard about, and Molly's friends were getting pulled over. They were getting in trouble for like having roaches in the car or whatever. Yeah. And fine. But for some reason, this cop felt it was relevant to tell my father every little thing that anyone in Molly's, periphery would do.
Yeah.
It really wasn't his business. And it probably violated some
civil rights.
Right. Yeah. So, and this is before Molly disappears. Now, after Molly disappeared, we learned that he made several statements. The day after Molly disappeared, there was a large search organized at like 6 a.m. The American Red Cross was there, state police, everybody. Search and I don't even know if they had search and it wasn't search, but it was a search and rescue operation kind of thing. And he says, now the kids are all there and my brother and I, and they won't let most of us go because they were underage. They wouldn't let John and I go. So we end up like sort of hanging out with the kids. Right. And the kids, and I'm speaking of kids like Molly's friends, were saying, what about this particular police officer? He told Molly, I'm going to put you in a place that your father can't get you out of. We're worried about him. And I said, well, what the hell does that mean? What are you guys doing? And they're like, nothing, Heather. We're literally doing nothing. We're just driving from here to there, and maybe we're not supposed to have all these kids in the car. Maybe, I mean, they're not, they weren't really doing anything. So why he felt so
emboldened
to go after these kids is concerning. However, Steve Lucas, so Molly's boyfriend, Steve's family, those kids were involved with some credit card thing. Yeah. Maybe he knew something about that. Maybe he was trying to go after that. I don't really know.
No, he didn't.
But the day Molly went missing, the day after Molly went missing, he said to the kids, she's probably just tripping in the woods. Now, why would he say that? He had never busted her doing any drugs. She's an honor roll student, the daughter of a probation officer, and the lifeguard in town. So it was peculiar that he would it felt like he was setting the stage, right? But
and the fact that she was found in the woods 3 years later,
right.
That's weird.
So he kept going to my dad and giving him information about Steve Lucas. Like he wanted it. Then he got very hot on Steve Lucas. Now my mom and I are getting irritated because we know it's not freaking Steve Lucas. And now we're kind of suspicious of him. And nothing ever came of it. The state police told us, oh, he had an alibi. And I'm like, well, again, how good are the alibis? Is it his wife? Is that his alibi? Like, I don't know. I don't really buy the alibi stuff very much, but nothing ever came of that. But let me tell you this one. He doesn't work in Warren anymore. And you know why? Because years and years later, 2 young girls, obnoxious teenagers, are walking down the street, being obnoxious, yelling about, hey, yeah, lesbian or whatever, calling each other, being obnoxious teenagers, right? So he starts yelling at them in the most inappropriate and irresponsible way you can as a police officer. And guess what? There's now phones, and they record him, and they let him go. And
so his conduct to teenage girls is what gets him gone. Yeah.
Right. But this is before Post existed. So, I believe he went up to Vermont and became a police officer up there. And, he's probably still around working in the system, I bet you.
Oh my gosh. And anyone who's not from Massachusetts, guys, like any of that's not from here, when did Post come in 2020?
Just a few years ago, it feels like.
Really, literally, I think it was after George Floyd that
yes, it was. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So 2020, 2021, they did this police officer standardized train.
Yep. That's what it is. Yep.
Yeah. And some police officers, babes, okay, decided not to, okay, because they didn't want to go through the standardized training. There was a small fraction that didn't want to, and everyone else needs to be certified by Post forever. So now if you think about Matthew Farwell, William Farwell, I'm just saying of the police officers that we would know, that they were removed, okay, because the Post Commission, they determined that they were not qualified, right? So if you are removed from Post, then it gives a signal, it throws out a bat signal, right? To the rest of the states that says you should not be a police officer. But if this shitty head, this guy didn't, if that happened before Post and he was able to just say, I got fired, but it doesn't matter. Now he's out of state, but he also has he's also been a police officer for umpteen years. They're going to take him for his experience up in Vermont because they didn't have a red flag in the system, guys.
And while we're talking about police officers and training, when you think about having a crime happen, who do you want to respond to your crime scene? Someone with an associate's degree in criminal justice? Or would you rather have a forensic person? We crank out so many forensic scientists in this state, and they all leave because we're not offering any jobs. And we're just getting these guys that are coming to scenes with a master's in strategy management or something. And as a victim, family member, I am beside myself with the educational requirements of law enforcement and the training requirements, because my whole scene and my whole investigation has been with law enforcement officers with very little forensic and scientific. Even my district attorney and I, he's struggled with understanding familial DNA and genetic genealogy and the differences. And I get it. Not maybe he necessarily needs to know the finite details, but you should know enough to be able to identify the evidence to be able to solve the case. And when you don't have forensic people working in law enforcement, you're relying on people with backgrounds in areas that have no applicability to the science that is actually required in solving crimes in this century.
Yeah. No, and it's so it's no offense, but it's embarrassing for the Commonwealth too, right? We've seen trials now, specifically with Trooper Paul, who got up there, and if you weren't bullshit at him, you would have felt so bad because he and if this didn't, if this wasn't an investigation for Officer John O'Keefe's life, right, of what happened, you'd be looking at him like, oh my gosh, your eyes twitching. I'm saying to myself, oh, he needs remedial training immediately,
Yeah.
But again, he it made me very uncomfortable because he didn't know his physics. And then we got crash daddies, right? That went up there,
Right.
which, I mean, they're literal scientists, babe. Okay. They're making their recreation. They're building their own cannons to
Right.
figure out how to piece this case together. And we've got Trooper Paul. Okay. Which, and I'm not
Right.
saying anything, associate's degrees are beautiful. We love all of you.
Yeah.
And you know, I had an associate's degree too. So I'm nowhere am I cropping on anybody. But the facts are the facts, that when we have a case and a situation, when you have, you know, somebody's life on the line, families looking for justice on the line, you cannot just wing it, babe. And they are really underprepared for situations, and it is not appropriate, in my humble opinion.
And I think the biggest tearjerker for me in that case was the collection of blood samples in the solo cups. Like, we're 24 years from my sister's crime scene, and my father, before he had a stroke, and my family has spent so much time talking about crime scene preservation and overreacting, and really ensuring that the crime scene isn't tainted. And the fact that they would be so irresponsible with a law enforcement officer's death is just devastating to me. Like, that's, I don't even know how they can't feel ashamed of that. Like,
yeah,
I'm ashamed of it.
me too. You know, like, just as, you know, I'm just, you know, whatever. But it was just it was embarrassing and horrifying. And I do somewhat, though, get pissed off at what you're dealing with. I get really agitated with your DA. I get really agitated with, you know, like you're saying, his basic knowledge and like the crime labs. And I'm thinking to myself, we should send it down to Bodie, or we should get it to go to UC Dave. We need to get your sister's evidence, you know, if we could get it to a different lab for them to do the testing on it, that I know that it has been, you know, I know that has been testing. You got some down in Texas. We'll get there eventually. But like, you know, there's been so many incredible advancements, Heather, that, like, you know, Massachusetts is like, we're still pilgrims, for Christ's sake. I don't understand how we're so far behind when we have like MIT and stuff, you know?
Right. Exactly. It's what I've been saying. I mean, we are so lucky to have all these colleges right in our backyards. We have all these wonderful experts coming out, and we're losing them. It's ridiculous. You know, my biggest issues, I think, right now are the lack of transparency and communication with law enforcement, and it's unnecessary. Obviously, you can't be completely transparent with the ongoing investigation, but there is some level of transparency that should be given to a victim family member, especially when you're 24 years in. And my district attorney won't even tell me what kind of DNA testing they're doing, where the testing is being done, and why is that detrimental to the case? It's not. And I've talked to lawyers in other states and asked them, why won't my district attorney tell me this? And they've told me that it's not, it's his personal choice not to. And when I reflect, and, you know, I've put this podcast together, and it's specifically about the case, but I've been working on this book, and it's really about my experience with this kind of crime and how it has impacted my family and myself. And, you know, it's kind of a joke, but it's not. My biggest, most traumatic relationship has been with the state police. I have been stonewalled, gaslit. It's like, if I told you, you know, examples of interactions, like at one time, I had a state police colonel telling me, well, you know, when I was asking about a particular situation with a particular person of interest, he said, well, I sleep at night, Heather. And I thought it was so condescending to say to me, because I have not fucking slept since my sister disappeared.
24 years. Yeah.
And how do you expect me to sleep when there's a murderer out there who killed my sister and left her on the side of a freaking mountain, asshole? But, you know, that is the cross that I bear. And my hope is that as these, you know, I also watched the Karen Reed case very closely and was cheering on her attorneys, because they are peeling back some of the very similar experiences that I've had with law enforcement. And it has been, you know, part of why I got a doctorate degree was so that I could walk into the room with those guys and have them feel like they could respect me, because I felt like just being a teacher wasn't enough, and they wouldn't listen to me and they wouldn't give me any credibility. And I had to take over this investigation when I was 30 and my father had a stroke. And I am literally just a teacher. Had no idea. I'm not a true crime person. I'm afraid of like Harry Potter and like, you know,
He who shall not be named. Yeah,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
You know, like I'm not good at that kind of stuff. So this has been challenging for me, and I've had to seek support in, you know, private investigators and people who volunteer that are from criminal justice programs or whatever I could do to figure out how to solve this, because it felt like law enforcement often is in like a tunnel vision or stuck in, you know, a
Their
particular
narrative.
place.
Yeah. I mean, like, and I
Yeah.
just don't get it though. I don't, for me, Heather, it's like, I'm sitting there going, don't you want to get this? Like, I know that we have such a backlog in the Commonwealth. Don't you want to, you know, correctly, appropriately, for our families, for our victims, get these wrapped up and do it the right way? And you're not doing it. They're leaving you, and you don't deserve to be left behind. And the fact that you had to step up and do, and you know, again, there's somebody who was like, you know, with your own, you know, your own daughter and everything, and going back to school to get your doctorate so that you could walk into that room. Let me tell you something, Heather. You know more, okay, in your pinky than half the dickheads that are sitting, pardon me, in any room. You could have walked in as a teacher, as a big sister, as a mother, as anything, and you are more classy and you have more compassion than the majority. And I'm not trying to be fresh, but you know what? You know, right to them, okay? And that's where, like, I would love to. I have put your, like, and I want to get into that afterwards. Like, we'll go back, but we all are fired up for you, okay? We all remember Molly. We are going to keep saying Molly's name, because the more pressure that we put on their neck, Heather, it's the more, like, and we say, oh, hi, you know, if we can keep tagging and you know, doing our hashtags on the Twitter or whatever the hell we can do. You know, if you want us to do standouts, like, we'll talk about things, because this is the shit that is going to be able to push it forward instead of allowing you to be stonewalled. You've had enough. You've done it enough, and we're all here, and we all want to support you.
I appreciate that so much. I have tried to do everything. I've put up billboards. I've put up posters in every town. I've taken out ads in every newspaper. I've, you know, had tip campaigns and made videos, and even got on TikTok, you know, trying to make my videos in my 40s, you know, which isn't challenging. But, you know, it's still like anytime I have a meeting with them, it's 5 people in the room. And only one of them, I know only one of them is investigating part of the time, because it's an unresolved case. You can't tell me those 5 people are working on it, but it's intimidation factor.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, sometimes I try to tell myself, take it as a positive, Heather, but then it's like, it just makes me cry every time, because it doesn't have to be this way. It shouldn't be this hard. I shouldn't feel like I'm fighting because I want my sister's crime to be solved, but the people who are supposed to be solving it, like, that shouldn't be a fighting relationship.
No, it shouldn't. And you know what? Like, I just thinking about, sorry, just because my brain got triggered with the advocates, the victim advocates. Does Michael Morrissey sit on that board?
He does. And
do you have to engage with him?
I have spoken to the governor about my concerns regarding this seat. I have spoken to her on a few occasions about this because I am very, very concerned about that. I've spoken. The governor is the person who puts these people in these positions. So yes, it is very concerning. And no, I don't speak to him because I don't respect him. I don't respect what he's doing right now.
Okay.
And maybe I don't know if he, and you know what? When I was working on this familial DNA bill, I was going around to all these interested associations, like the Chief of Police Association, and I met with the district attorneys, and I made some friends with some of the women ADAs. Right now, time goes by, and I'm sitting in a forensic oversight board meeting where there happens to be a lot of interested party, including some district attorneys. And we're talking about this bill that we're trying to hash out so everybody's happy. And, and suddenly I'm hearing a letter read that is signed by an ADA woman that I know very well. And I am sitting there, and it's being read by a older man who has a higher position of power.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there listening to this letter being read, and I say, she did not write this freaking letter. I know she didn't. So I text her while I'm in this meeting because it's a Zoom at this time. And she's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I said, well, they signed your name to a letter, and they're saying that you wrote this letter.
Oh my God.
So to be a woman, imagine to be a woman working in this field with these older men in positions of power that have gotten away with shit for so long.
Oh my God. Heather, burn it all down. Like at this point, it needs to be like it all needs to come down. All of it. It's all we got to build it again. This is insanity. You are putting your name on a letter because and the shit that they've gotten away with for the length of time that they think that this is just, it's just a Tuesday. Like that they don't understand how far it's been pushed. And I'm telling you,
well, these are just my little experiences. So when some of this stuff came out in the open with the Reed trial, there was no doubt because I've seen them in action, and them being the district attorneys, some of the district attorneys, not all of them, and some of the state police.
Wow.
So we all need lawyers. We all need those.
We all need lawyers. Yes.
Here and Reed lawyers to come out of the woodwork and help us all out.
Well, absolutely. And Heather, there is you are actively, working on obtaining an attorney that's going to assist you in getting to the bottom of this, finding the bottom of the shit pile that has been as long as it has, right? Like you want to get someone, right?
Yeah, I think I'm just reaching a point where it's kind of getting out of my hands. Like I've wanted to, I've written my letters to request Molly's case being moved to Hampden County. I've written letters to the federal government asking them to check into my case. And, I'm also getting a lot of contracts for interest in documentaries and stuff. And this is all out of my league. So I think it's come to a point where I'd love to be able to have someone or a law firm that I can say, hey, what do you think about this? What can we do? Can you help me write with this? And sometimes, and maybe, down the road, be the intermediary and with the state police investigators. It is very, it makes you almost suicidal after you talk to them. Like it makes you feel so bad after you have these conversations because you're working on a case and you're being treated like you're not on the same team. And when you've done that for 24 years, it's exhausting. And it just feels like there's no one to turn to when the people that are supposed to be protecting you aren't. So, I think having a lawyer
you need
would
it. Yeah.
would make me feel like I'm protected, even if it's a false sense of security to some degree, and it's something I'm paying for. It would be something more than, what's happening right now. I just, when I think about the context of your years, I've been fighting for my sister for 24 years. That's half my life. I mean, how, and I just actually stopped having nightmares in October. I've been having night terrors this whole time, and I plugged for acupuncture. It wasn't actually therapy in any form. I've done all of it, but it was actually acupuncture that helped me get rid of my night terrors. But you suffer for so long, and it's draining and it's wearing. And I'm middle-aged. I want to live to see my grandkids, and I want to experience what a normal life is. I've never had that. When we thought we might have had the suspect, when the district attorney announced that Frank Sumner was the person, and then he was never able to prove it. But when he announced that, it gave me this feeling like, oh my God, I might be able to actually, like, I don't know, learn how to teach yoga or something. Like, I've spent so much time on my sister's case. It's like a full-time job.
Well, it's like another life you've lived too. You're living her life, trying to bring justice to her life while trying to live your life, Heather. Like, I mean, babe, you cannot do it all alone, and I don't want you to be alone. And like, I want to put something across the screen, Heather, for people to donate. Is it? I have it in our link of the YouTube, but can you just tell me, do you have something on the Justice for Molly Bish? Is there any donation on that page?
Yep, on our website. Yep.
Okay, and that is can you tell me what that is? Just
Molly Bish Foundation.
Molly Bish.
Yep.
Bish. Molly, sorry, bear with me. Foundation.org.
Yep.
.org. All right, Dallin, I'm throwing this right across because let me tell you, you have not only done all of this, you've done it, like you said, you've done it all by yourself. And we got it. I didn't even change.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. It's .com.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
I'm
all right.
Sorry,
we're gonna hide it real quick. We're gonna don't you worry. We're going to say support our support justice for Molly Bish. Okay. You have done this too long. And like I'm saying, who am I, right? I'm just Kim. But I knew that this has been something that I have thought about, since it happened. A lot of us remember 24 years ago. And for our if there's any young humans, if you don't remember 24 years ago, Heather, you're going to be having you're doing a podcast, you said, right? So
yes.
When does that come out?
I'm hoping, my goal is for Molly's 25th anniversary in June. It'll be the second season of Media Pressure, which came out. The first season was on the Maura Murray case.
I loved it.
Yeah, so we'll be the second season on that show. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have a little bonus episode with Julie and myself talking about our experiences. Maura disappeared only 4 years after Molly, and it was such a difference because when Molly disappeared, there wasn't social media. And when Maura disappeared, there was MySpace. So that was sort of took off in a different way. But it's interesting, how media has impacted both of our cases in different contexts.
Absolutely. And are you familiar at all with Mr. Mark Betterow? Like, have you seen him on any of our, he's an attorney out of New York, and he is like, he's like, when I tell you, Heather, he is incredible. He just took on Turtle Boy as just to help him with the felony, but the felony witness intimidation charges. But he has been commenting and giving us just as residents and watchers of the case. He has helped us so much, and he has had some major, he was a Manhattan district attorney. Okay. But then he became into private practice. So I know him. He's my friend.
So cool to have cool friends, right?
he's not really actually my friend, but he really like I think he's my I'm not his friend, but he is definitely my friend. But he would answer a DM. So I would love to just like throw out your name and in your email, if I may.
Oh yes, please.
To him, because he got his special license to practice. And you know how you could do that ad hoc vice, that you can come into a different state. So like I just know that he has a fire in him, and he was born in Worcester. He's a Worcester boy.
Way. Oh my God.
Oh my God, you guys are gonna be best friends. Oh my Lord. Okay, I'm putting it together, but we're gonna be working for you. And like you're not like I just want you to know, and I'm not trying to be a weirdo, but like you're not alone. You know what I mean? And if you are like that, like when you said that like you can feel so low after those phone conversations, I just want you to know that like, you know, if you want to talk to me or FaceTime or like whatever, like, or if you want me to just like come to kick someone in the nuts with you, like I will do what you need of me. Okay. So like, don't carry the load all on your shoulders anymore. Okay, sister? Because we are here with you, and like, we won't go anywhere until you get, and Molly gets justice. Okay. And then like, you know, we love your face. We like, and I'm obsessed. If you guys aren't following Heather on TikTok too, I should put that somewhere as well, because you are incredible. And that's justice for Molly Bish, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. I'm going to put that in the stream. Let me get it in. Okay. The banner. I'm sorry guys. I wish I was actually good at this, but I am not. So, and then at sorry, Justice.
No, this tech stuff is gonna be the death of me, especially
I'm like
with
an old woman.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We're saving it and we're putting it back up. Listen, it's happening. It's all happening. She's getting it together.
All right.
Okay. So so now I don't want to keep you for 5 million years, but with regards to, Molly's body was recovered at Whiskey Hill in Palmer, and that was only 5 miles, correct? From the pond. Yep. Okay. All right.
And then 2.5 miles from my family home. So very, very close by. Yeah. And we went over that road all the time. That's where the grocery store is closest to us. So.
That is insane. Now with that though, too, it was, so I saw this thing though that said that they're in Whiskey Hill in Palmer in late fall of 2002, someone had reported seeing a blue bathing suit, right? Like a hunter. Yep. And then in the spring of 2003, Tim McGuigan.
So Tim McGuigan is a retired police officer, kind of a shady character himself, had some history of domestics, some history of alcohol issues. I think I don't really know. He definitely had some issues in his past. Was obsessed with this case, separate from Molly's, Holly Peranian case. So he was writing a book about it, and then is sitting at a bar with his boyfriend's his girlfriend's brother. Sorry, his girlfriend's brother. So that's the guy who found the bathing suit. The hunter was the girl. So he brought Tim because, again, this guy doesn't know Molly's not wearing a lifeguard bathing suit. Tim does know that. He's looking at connections to these cases. So he goes with him and they call the police. Now the police don't know how to react because, again, this is it's in this rural area, and it's like, is it Warren? Is it where? Is it Palmer? They weren't sure who it was to respond. So then they called the state police. They're kind of taking their time. And a wear officer, I believe, went up and stayed for the night with the bathing suit until the state police got there. And that was when, we found out the next day that they had found the bathing suit. And my friend, Kathy Curran, who was a Channel 10 reporter recently, was able to record the bathing suit. there because it took so long for the response and the recovery of the crime scene. At that time, 48 Hours was out doing a sort of a reenactment of Molly's case up until this point, and decided to stay for the whole summer. And the producer became really good buddies with my mom, and he later told us that when he went up with Mr. McGuigan, that he suddenly found another piece of the bathing suit. So, and that was after the search. So once that bathing suit was found, it sparked the biggest search. Now, we were really, really, really lucky that there was a forensic anthropologist in the medical examiners at the time. So she had the experience and went over 50 acres, did a grid by grid search, designed it. So then when those, when the lieutenants are trying to push her away and trying to grab the skull and move stuff around, she's like, hell no, I need to find the indentation. I'm trying to find she had to call Colonel Foley and tell your man to stand down. And she talks about this on my podcast.
This is going to be incredible. This is going to be incredible when you can get all of this out, Heather.
Yeah.
Because oh Lord, I know that we're only scratching the surface there.
Right.
But
it's just so much.
Yeah. No. And then what happened with so she gets it, and then she tells him, she calls Colonel Foley and says, absolutely,
tell your man to stand down. So she had just dug up all the Whitey Bulger bones. So that's why she had some credibility because she had been able to deliver on that.
Huge.
And
yeah.
So, and Foley was and Colonel Foley was an awesome guy.
Yeah.
So he did side with her, and she was the one that was able to help us recover all those bones because, basically Molly was dragged around by a mountain lion, and, so her bones are all over the place and crunched up and eaten. And unfortunately we were able to get the skull and, identify her that way. But the cause of death was hard to, wasn't able to determine. But they were able to determine where she was left and that it was a shallow grave. But how did this guy get her in there? It's like the straight up, incline, on a windy, turny road, not a really good place to park unless you parked, so they were building houses on that side. Now there's a big, car racing track there. But before that was there, they were building houses. And so theoretically could have went into where they were starting to build those houses and parked and maybe dragged her. But you're talking about a 5'7", 130 pound. I mean, it's hard to think about this, 50-year-old guy dragging this or whoever. So, they've talked about four-wheelers. They've talked about horses. How did they get her in there?
What about cops? What about that weird cop? Would he have known?
Right.
Away? I don't know. Right. I have a weird feeling about, I don't know. When you said that, I got, when you just talked about him, I'm thinking about Steve. Mm-hmm. I know about the weird, I know about everything, but for some reason he's sticking with me, of just it's making my eye twitch,
And we kind of, my mom and I think of this podcast as our last ability to get our version and our sentiments and our thoughts and ideas out on this case, despite what the police say, think, or, and you'll hear my mom talk about, to this day, she still has concerns in her gut about this person.
About the cop?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
We'll you'll hear that out of her mouth in the podcast. So stay tuned.
Gosh. We're all gonna be listening, Heather. I swear to goodness. So then I just wanted to also ask about this. So we knew that no cause of death was able to be determined. How horrifying. I can't even imagine just for you guys to not not know that either, not I don't know, but just was it quick? Was it whatever? But they did say that there was no bullets or like there was no visible like trauma that they were
Right.
able to tell. Is that correct?
Right. And we did not find her boxers, or she had like a ribbed tank top on at the time. So you remember, I don't know if you remember in the 90s, the girls used to wear like boys boxers and sort of fold them on the top.
Yes, I do. Okay.
Right. I tried to model it on TikTok with some Hampton Beach ones I found, but it's kind of hard to reenact the 90s. But those were never recovered. Could they have been taken by an animal? Weather, all likely too. But yeah, there was nothing besides pieces of her bathing suit and the bones, pieces of tape, and cigarette butts. So I believe that is what they're looking at for DNA testing.
Okay. Now, do you not feel comfortable because that cop, is there any record if we were to Google who that was before post when he went up to like maybe Vermont or wherever he went to be another police officer? Or do we not feel, we don't want to say his name?
Yeah, I don't know if I can say
Okay.
his name.
No, don't say it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. Right.
I respect you too much. I don't want to get you in trouble. So I shall not. But then there was a couple of like interesting people. There was the Rodney Stanger. Where are we at with him?
So again, yeah. So Rodney Stanger came up when he murdered his girlfriend. His girlfriend's sister called Bob Ward. And Bob Ward ended up reaching out to the private investigator that we were talking to at the time. He was kind of helping us navigate the investigation because it was kind of going on. And then my father has the stroke in 2007, and I have to take over. So then this private investigator is kind of helping me figure out what to do. So he was sort of mentoring me. So then that lands in my lap. And, we chased it down. We did everything we could to uncover as much as we could about Rodney. I mean, Rodney was from the area. He lived in a close vicinity to where Molly was training to be a lifeguard. So could he have run into her at a Dunkin' Donuts or something? Possibly.
Yeah.
He was familiar with the area. He was a fisherman. He was a hunter. He had a history of violence against animals and violence against family members, violence against others. His brother, Randy, also had a history, also had a white car at the time that Molly disappeared. And also, remarkably enough, if you look into this Holly Peranian case, her brother was with her when she disappeared. She was, he was much younger. And when they put him under hypnosis once, they drew a sketch of the guy. It looks just like Randy Stanger. So he was definitely, they were both suspects in both of Molly and Holly's cases. But Rodney was the only person who's actually committed a murder that we know of. So he, he was a good suspect. In 2000, I think it was like 2012 or 13, they were supposed to be going down for some DNA testing. Bob Ward from Fox News ended up getting down there, searching his trailer before the cops ever arrived. No one even looked in his trailer. When he was there, he found a fisherman's license from April of 2000, looked just like the sketch. So, and he had a lot of there was a lot of little girl hair clips and stuff in his house. Now, could that have been his girlfriend's? Maybe, I don't know. It wasn't something an older woman would have worn. Molly didn't have it. Molly's hair was really short at the time. So, it's unlikely that they found it wasn't anything of hers that we know of. But here's another great cop story. So I'm waiting on DNA. Kathy Curran's my best helper as a media person,
Yes.
So Kathy and I are calling for 6 weeks every day. And they're telling me any day now, Heather, any day now. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is the guy, you know, I mean, this is a horrible guy. And he has so much circumstantial to this. And then one day I call and they say, Heather, we're not going to talk to you about DNA anymore. And I'm like, what the hell do you mean? I've been waiting 6 weeks. You're going to solve this case. Like, what are you fucking talking about? And they're like, nope, we're not talking about DNA anymore. And I am ready to lose my shit, right? So I call Kathy and I'm like, what is going on? And I tell her what they say. And so she, as an investigative reporter with a lot more connections than I have, digs around and finds out that there's some sort of issue between the state police and the lab, and they never conducted the testing.
Oh my God, Heather.
So I never found out. Did they lose that piece of evidence? Did they ever test that piece of evidence? They won't talk to me about DNA anymore.
Oh, we're gonna fight. We're getting a lawyer. Everyone, chat. We love ya. We're getting a lawyer. We're going to have an intermediary. We're calling it an ombudsman. We're calling
a lawyer or a therapist. I don't know.
We're getting a whole team together, okay? We're going to get the team stirs. We're going to get everyone, and we're going to fuck them up, okay? Because we're on another planet. Like, we're extraterrestrial, okay? E.T. phone home in Heather. We do not, this is as effed up as every other case, unfortunately, that we have looked in the Commonwealth, but at least with certain other cases, you feel like you are getting somewhere. You're also stonewalled, and the fuckery is on level 12,000. How are you supposed to move forward anywhere? You know how, babe? With us, okay? It's going to be Kathy. Kathy left. Did she leave?
Channel 10, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know, good for her. I know that she'll do something else. Yeah. She got that great freaking Proctor, and when he was going in the house, and he's like, "Get off my lawn!" I was like, "Kathy, I love her." Oh, she's a good doobie. And okay, so we just don't know whatever happened though. So we need to. Can we do our own? Is it legal for us to? If we were to find like a lab, or could we ask for the evidence to be sent?
That's what I've been asking them. When do I get any possession of this case? Why can't I? They won't even let me see the evidence. They'll let Kathy into the evidence room. They won't even talk to me about evidence. And then they tell me, well, you're going to tell Kathy Curran. You're the ones telling Kathy Curran. Like, you're the ones letting her in. Like, I have nothing to do with it. Like, Kathy got the video of the bathing suit before you. Bob Ward's down in this. Like, they're all doing this. It has nothing to do with me giving them information. In fact, it's a reverse. They give me the information. Right.
This feels so gross, Heather, for you.
I mean,
like that. I mean, it's
when my parents saw the bathing suit, it was in a media truck in their driveway. It wasn't with the state police. It was with Kathy Curran in a media truck in their driveway.
Okay, guys.
And they just wanted to know. They just wanted to see the bathing suit because they needed to know that it was their daughter, so they could freaking go to bed at night and not worry that their daughter's being tortured somewhere. You know, they give a victim a break, man.
Oh yeah. No, there is going to be a lot of repercussions for what you have endured, and I think that you've done it. I think that you've tried to endure it all, like just on your chin, and just keep taking the hits and keep taking the hits. Well, I'm about to scream it from a rooftop, okay? And I know that I have large mouth. We've all got big mouth broads in this chat, okay? And when all the big mouth broads get together and we have a cause of standing up, because you're not going to continue to silence our sister Heather is not going to have to say, I am walking on eggshells to get evidence of my sister's from her crime, so that I can do what I would like to, and our family would like to complete testing. And we're going to do, I just friggin' saw that DA talking about how they've got new technologies and that they're going to be doing testing on the 200 pieces of evidence of from your sister's case. Is he talking
They say that every
out?
year. They say that every single year. If you go back and look at the anniversary footage from DA Conti for every year, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And he loves to quote my dad that, my dad gave him the idea for unresolved cases. That's great. What can you tell us that you haven't said 1,000 times?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. Like, this is no more. This is a resistance. Okay. Now we need to we're resisting, and we are going to be figuring this out with you as a team. Okay, Heather. So we're going to do posts, and we're going to be posting on TikTok. We're going to be posting I'll do it on Twitter because I'm not afraid. Okay. Come for me. And like, I talked to Ted Daniel the other week. Okay. Like, actually on the phone, he doesn't know it's me, but I can reach out to Dave and ask if Ted, because Ted is actually really good and he pushes too. So, your word, your voice matters. And I think that you have tried to go about this every possible way to work with your DA, to work with your investigators, to work with everything. And for them to shut you out is completely a violation of your victim and family rights. You have rights to all the shits, Heather. You're not going to tell me what I'm going to be looking at for my sister's items, okay? Mm-hmm. Your parents should have never had to ask permission, okay? Or had to have a truck come, well, I mean, that was a good thing, but I'm just saying, like, you don't dance around them. They dance for you. They are to serve and protect, and they serve us in the Commonwealth. It is not the opposite way. So today, and from this day forth, I know that you're doing everything that you can. But now, all of us guys, we have 351 people in here. Out of all of us, and Kirk, and I'll reach out to Kirk Minahan. I'll have Dave reach out to Kirk Minahan. He did the case season 2.
Oh, I heard that. It was good.
Oh, so
it was so good.
Yeah. So like we've got connections. Are they amazing? I don't know. I'm just a little girl from Walt. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just Kim. But all of us together is something, right? And I just want you to know that we all are right here with you, and for you to even just give us those small scratching of the surface, guys. Recognize that, right? We are not, like, Heather has an entire 24 years of things she could tell us that is going to be in her upcoming podcast that we're going to be able to listen. But in the meantime, we need to mobilize, activate, mobilize, and move forward in order for us to get somewhere. We're not standing still anymore, period.
Thank you. I mean, it was the same thing with Frank Sumner, when they came up with Frank, and I mean, there's even less circumstantial evidence, although he did rape somebody. But, they're saying, oh, we're going to do DNA testing. It took a year, and then they couldn't corroborate the accusation. And there's no, and here's the worst part. I know one of Frank Sumner's daughters. She didn't have a relationship with him because he was a terrible person, but that was her last name for much of her life before she was married. And to think that your father, even if you didn't have a relationship, killed somebody that you grew up with is devastating. So I just find it a little irresponsible to make a statement like that Joe made without having corroborating evidence. And, again, I've talked to prosecutors, and they've said, usually you do the DNA testing before you have the press conference. And he didn't do that. And that's where that was the last straw for me with Joe early, because
so early, the DA. Yeah.
I mean, come on. Like, you just, and then we haven't even talked about Battistoni. I mean, Battistoni was another person of interest that came to me in about 2011 from a private investigator who was working with a lawyer on a child custody case. with this Gerald Battistoni, who was from Palmer, who was an informant for the Palmer police, had dressed up like a police officer, had a history of, mental health issues, drug addiction, abusive relationships. His ex-girlfriend said he was driving a white car the day Molly disappeared, said it was her car. He was testing it and driving it to Warren and back. I mean, there's just, and he had a girl. He was obsessed with this young girl who lived by the cemetery in Warren. So he had occasion, to drive out this way. He was also a hunter and a fisherman, familiar with the area, access to, materials that might, he had handcuffs. He had all these things that when they've arrested him over the years, they've identified it being in his possession that he shouldn't have had. So I've often worried about him because what was that relationship with the Palmer police, and why didn't anything ever come of that? When there was I think it was Kim Ring was a Telegram and Gazette reporter. When she wrote the article about Battistoni and tying it to Molly's case, he tried to kill himself in jail. He was already in jail for this for abuse, because he was convicted in this child custody case of raping this girl and molesting her over the years. He was already in jail for that. So, and then he tried to kill himself when it was announced that he might have been tied to Molly's case. So, I mean, these things I've tried to bring up and bring forward, but then there's only so far that I can go. And I expect the police to do it and to give me something. You don't have to give me all the details, but like, how did you rule him out? What test? Did you do DNA tests? Instead of just stonewalling me and saying, you can't tell me, like, how am I going to impact the investigation in a negative way? Like, at this point, that no one in my family did this.
Clearly.
And if you think it's Frank Sumner, then what are you basing that on?
Heather, you have given us a lot. You have given us a lot to really wrap our minds around, and I just wanted to say to you, thank you again, like, for just sharing and being open, because it's infuriating to hear another example of and your family being treated so poorly. Like, I want to, like, go fight somebody. You know what I mean? Like, I want to take off my earrings and like fight someone, because it's just like, it doesn't make sense. Make it make sense that you as a family member of and a victim yourself because of this case, how they can't provide you with not just some of the information. You're being too kind, saying like, oh, you don't have to give me everything. I want everything. Tell me everything that is relevant to this, because you deserve to know that. And the fact that they're dicking you around and telling you that you don't have that right, like, hi, early. If you don't listen up and listen up right, like, you won't have a job, first of all, because he's up for election. When is he up for election next? I think in 26, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and then like, also it's a violation. You could own them at the end of the day. Like, it's your rights are being violated, Heather, every time they deny you something. I mean, like you're saying, this isn't, it didn't happen last Tuesday that they're saying, God, we've got to keep everything, hush, hush. Right. Like, no, you've put your entire life, everything that you have into it, and you deserve all of the answers. Ooh, I want to punch him. I want to punch a proctor. Okay. Like, I just get so pissed. Sorry.
I invited the state police and the district attorney to participate in my podcast, and they put the shutdown on that. Even on the retired guys I reached out to.
Wow. So. What does that say?
Right.
What does that say?
Right.
Exactly. I mean, if that doesn't scream it, I don't know what does. But yeah, and I'm just thinking, is there anything else that you would like me to tell, or that you would like to tell with our humans? And and then we'll just all be, we're all your people now. We are your humans too now.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that just take care of each other, look out for each other. I mean, there's so much in Molly's case. I could go on and on. We'd be here for hours and hours and hours. That's why it had to be put into a whole podcast. I've done so many podcasts that are 45 minutes, and I'm always like, there's so much I haven't been able to say. So I think that, this podcast really gives my family and I the opportunity to share what we experienced and what we think and what we know about the case, which we do have that historical knowledge. I mean, every detective that comes on this case doesn't have the background knowledge that, we've had. They have to sift through and think about these data systems. They started with paper, folders. Then they went to this data system, and that data system. They all don't talk to each other.
Right. So
it's like, do they even remember who this guy was or that guy, or the connections between these guys? And that's the stuff that I think is most important is like our version of events, and to have that out there is going to be so relieving for us. I think they'll be like, okay, we've done everything that we can, and we can't make the police we can't make them work with us. We can't make them talk to us, tell us anything. We can't make anything happen. We can just try to educate and advocate. And that's really all we've been trying to do this whole time.
Yeah. And you said for the podcast, Heather, that we're hoping for Molly's birthday.
Yeah, so we're hoping for like next June, next summer, a launch. So that's my hope. I'm almost there. I just gotta get this tech figured out, just like you.
Tech. I know.
So
I know.
hard.
Well, if you need if you need tech humans, you let me know. You email me, and I'll see, because I'm sure that I know that. Well, Mr. Nurse Kim does IT. I don't know if he knows like platforms, but I got you. If he can, I got you. Okay.
Awesome.
And I just wanted to again say thank you for sharing a part of it, a very small, minuscule part of what you have endured and what you have triumphantly continued to fight for 24 years. You are a warrior, you are a queen, and we all just, are really rooting for you, are rooting for Molly always, and your family are in our thoughts and prayers. And if you need anything, you call us. We answer FaceTimes anytime you need us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on and caring about Molly, and really the support is everything. So thank you.
Absolutely. And guys, my humans, just before Heather leaves, there is 2 links right in this, in the YouTube at the bottom are the links, and you can donate. And this is going to be able to help Heather and help the Bishes to gather the resources in which they need, guys. Okay. Like they need, Heather has done everything that Heather can. Heather needs a team now, and we've got to come together as a team for Heather to help her, just put like plans in place, and for her to be able to execute things appropriately. And we're going to use all of our connection powers, and we'll do everything that we can to get that fund where it needs to be for you, Heather. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. And I hope to talk to you soon, Heather, too.
All right.
Okay?
Awesome.
All right.
Yes,
Thank
definitely.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, lovies. I have a renewed spirit that we had quite a freaking week, right, guys? We had, Dave got to go out to supper. Okay. He shared a filet with Karen. Then the next day we get everything that comes out about Sandra Birchmore, the federal arrest, and the affidavit of the despicable, horrific Matthew Farwell, which we hope that he pays for everything he must in his life. And then we got, like, I was able to incredibly get Heather Bish to come on and talk to us. And I am telling you guys, I am more renewed than ever. We are going to stand up together. We are going to fight for justice. And we are going to continue to say the names of Sandra Birchmore, of Molly Bish, Loud and Proud, Officer O'Keefe, and Karen Reed. There are many more that we can name. We could add to that list. But right now, guys, Heather is struggling, and she has done all of this all by herself for 24 years. Can you imagine, babes? 24 years that you've had to lean on, yourself, right? She had to raise her daughter. I mean, yes, she has her sibling, her brother, but she has really put all of this on her. And if we could help her and we could love her up and we could help get her to the finish line for Molly, I know that she would really appreciate it. And I know that we can make a difference. So I love your face. I will talk to you soon. And thank you for answering my calls, my best friends from out of town. Bye.